Health, yeah. This isn't your average health talk. We're asking those awkward questions for you. We're digging into the health, wellness, and medical news that matters to you. We're cutting through the clickbait with facts you can trust, from uncomfortable questions to breakthrough science. It's a dose of real news you can use. This is Health Yeah with Monica Robbins, your prescription for life.
In the first 3 months of 2025, the Trump administration reduced National Institutes of Health funding by $2.7 billion, according to the Senate Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions Committee report. The NIH has scaled back new grant awards by at least $2.3 billion since January. These funding changes have resulted in the termination of nearly 2,300 NIH grants as of June, including 160 clinical trials investigating treatments for cancer, chronic diseases, and HIV/AIDS. What do these changes mean for medical research institutions, ongoing studies, and patient care? How are Cleveland's research centers adapting to this new funding landscape? What are the implications for future scientific discoveries and medical treatments? To understand the impacts, we're speaking with Dr. Ted Teknos, president of University Hospital's Seidman Cancer Center, deputy director for UH, and a member of the Development Therapeutics Program at the Case Comprehensive Cancer Center.
Dr. Teknos, thank you so much for joining us. You know, we've heard so much about cuts to clinical trials and everything else that's going on right now. So what is the current state of funding for research and clinical trials right now?
You know, it's a ever evolving environment, Monica. It's, there's no question it's been very stressful because there's been a lot of uncertainty, but fortunately, the NIH and the NCI actually maintain their funding levels. And that has allowed us to at least have some certainty. So the clinical trial portfolio for university hospitals has remained very, vibrant, and we've actually been able to expand our clinical trial portfolio despite, these challenges that have been coming from Washington. And many of our trials are not only funded through the government, but also through, private pharma institutions and foundations as well. So it's certainly been a little rocky, but I think we've been very fortunate to maintain our funding levels.
When you talk about those challenges, though, and you talk about private donors, how important are they right now?
Even though the funding level from the NIH has been maintained, there are so many more scientists and so much more research that needs to be done that the pay line for NIH grants is dropped to only about 8% of grants being funded. So that leaves a huge gap of really important studies that the government won't fund or can't fund under current conditions. So we rely heavily then on our donors to make up the difference and to provide funding to really allow us to do those high risk, high reward clinical trials. So that's why a gift like Miss Kathy Coleman's is so important. As you know, she very generously gave an additional gift of $3.4 million to expand the Les and Kathy Coleman Clinical Research Unit at university hospitals. Her total lifetime giving now is over $14 million. And that has really allowed us to expand our services and build on the vision that her and her husband Les had, from 14 years ago.
Perhaps not everyone can give that amount of money, but when you talk about donors and talk about in general what donors can give, what kinds of things are donations actually paying for, tangible things?
Yeah, that's a great question. And like you say, or like you said, any gift is incredibly generous and wonderful and will be put to good use, regardless of the size of the donation. So what the gifts really go towards is, number one, doing the science that's necessary to discover what pathways or what genes are responsible for certain cancers to grow and thrive and evade, drugs or our own immune system. Then those basic discoveries can be translated to medications that can go into the clinic. So doing that preclinical work, funding scientists so that they can do the lab work that's necessary, and then translating it to the clinic. So we use a lot of our philanthropic dollars, to help pay for the costs of these clinical trials, which can be enormous, sometimes as much as $50,000 to $100,000 per patient to have a trial, to do a study. So the philanthropic dollars really do help offset those costs and allow us to do the trials.
What is the biggest thing in research at university hospitals that you're most excited to see come out?
What really excites me about the clinical trials that we have going now is really the synergy between our National Center for Regenerative Medicine, which is in partnership with Case Comprehensive Cancer Center, and the Wesley Center for Immunotherapy. That center was created doubling the size of our capabilities to deliver cellular therapies to patients. So we have numerous very novel CAR-T clinical trials that have started at university hospitals that really has led us as a national leader in this field. Another thing that really excites me is this kind of burgeoning field of what's called theranostics, whereby an antibody is attached to a tumor, and you can attach to the antibody either something to image the tumor or radiation to be delivered to the tumor specifically, sparing normal tissues. So these theranostic studies are really the next phase of really science fiction, if you will, for cancer care. They not only help you image where the tumor is, but also deliver very precise payloads of radiation to kill these tumors.
Are these projects funded, or is funding still needed?
Many are funded through the government, but then funding is still needed to expand. So I think, some of these donations that we get are really going towards both cellular therapies as well as these theranostic opportunities. But certainly, we're very grateful for the ability to be able to generate these and bring these to the public through both federal funding as well as philanthropic support.
What else does this donation allow you to do to reach more people?
This donation, Monica, is going to allow us to expand the footprint of our clinical trial space. Right now, about 80% of the patients who get enrolled in clinical trials have to travel to University Circle, university hospitals, on Seidman Cancer Center's main, footprint to get their clinical trials. And sometimes that's just not possible for folks. So for individuals who live a distance away, for individuals who don't have the means to travel, we're going to be opening many more clinical trial sites in their communities. We have one of the leading phase 1 programs in the nation, which is the first time patients receive a drug in any capacity and test for its safety and efficacy. So we're going to open phase 1 trials in the community so patients can actually have access to these cutting edge trials near their homes where we know they're going to heal better and have greater support.
Is that normal in a clinical trial? Is that typically done?
No, this would be something unique. I think, again, because these are complex trials, they tend to have to travel to the ivory tower to get these studies, but we're going to use Kathy's donation to really reach out to the communities and set up these unique and very important trials where they live.
I'm not sure a lot of people understand how difficult it is to get government funding or even grant money from other agencies. Can you talk about the difficulties it is to even file the grant work or file for that, and the percentage of how many of those even get looked at?
Yes, putting together a grant is a very lengthy, complicated process. You need a lot of data, to be able to even begin to put the grant together. And then there's a lot of administrative effort that goes into, filling the grant itself out. Then you submit it, and it's reviewed by a group of peers. And ultimately, about 1 in 12 grants gets funded. So it's a very small number. And these are, stellar, exceptional scientists all vying for that little piece of the pie. So 1 in 12 gets funded. Some people have to submit their grants multiple times in order to achieve funding. So it's an incredibly competitive process.
Does our area, because of how well we're known for medical research, and I often refer to Northeast Ohio as the medical mecca, do we have a better chance of getting access to that? Or are you concerned in this current environment that even our grants or our research is getting passed over?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that there's no question that part of the advantage of being in a center like ours is that a grant's ability to be funded really is predicated on having infrastructure support and the support of your institutions. So the fact that we have a great track record here in Northeast Ohio through the Case Comprehensive Cancer Center, Cleveland Clinic, shows that we have a very healthy environment for research. So we may have a little bit of an advantage in that regard, but really it's a meritocracy. So whichever grant is the best is going to get funded. So we just need to bring the best and the brightest here to Cleveland to be able to compete. And I think we've done a really good job of that.
How concerned are you that some of these cuts are actually going to have real impact because some of this funding will get cut and some of these projects won't even get off the ground?
Yeah, I think we all lose sleep over that. Which of the grants will continue to be funded, and will we be able to renew some of the grants we have? Fortunately, a very small number of our grants were voided because of issues related to some diversity, equity, and inclusion concerns that were sort of brought to bear with the Supreme Court decisions. But it's a small number. But there's no question, though, that the way we write grants, the way we submit grants has been affected. And with, the pay line being at the 8th percentile, it's making it very, very difficult for our scientists to get funding. To put it in perspective, when I first started in medicine and grants were being submitted, the pay line was up around the 20% range that would get funded. 22 even, and now it's down around 8%. So you can do the math. And my real concern is that not so much for the accomplished scientists who've submitted grants, but it's really the young scientists who are coming out. What I hear over and over again is young, brilliant PhDs are worried about entering the field of academic medicine and research because they're worried they're not going to get funded. So they end up choosing other career paths or going to industry rather than coming to universities and doing research at great centers like ours.
What will that mean to the field? What will that mean to medicine in the future?
Well, my concern is that it'll slow progress. I mean, the advantage that we've had as a nation is that we've had the best and brightest go into biomedical research. And, the speed of discovery has just been ratcheted up because of all these brilliant young minds. So, I'm worried that we'll lose a generation worth of scientists because of some of the concerns of getting funding and getting a job, frankly, in academic medicine.
Do you think that's a very real aspect of this, or do you think that's just something we're going to have to wait and see?
Oh, no, I think it's real. I mean, I hear it all the time from graduate students and from people who are PhDs or even undergraduates deciding on what kind of career path they want to pursue. They're very concerned and they want to have a livelihood, when they graduate. So I think this uncertainty is no doubt affecting the younger generation of scientists and their decision making as to whether or not they're going to pursue graduate studies or even a research career.
So what can the average person do about it?
Well, I think, the average person, it's something that we all have to be aware of. I think the average person can help, with regards to, as we talked about, I mean, there are shortfalls in funding for research. So the more they help support their academic institutions through philanthropic donations, the more we can continue the great science that is coming out of, Cleveland's great institutions.
Any final thoughts?
Well, I think, we're going to continue. Our mission at university hospitals has been the same, for, its entire, 156-year existence. That, the needy are the most worthy in Northeast Ohio. We're here for this community. We're going to continue to grow our clinical trial portfolio. Through this gift and other gifts, we're not only going to, continue our trials, but expand them dramatically. And we're going to bring the latest medicines to patients in Northeast Ohio, because that's what our mission is and that's what they deserve.
Dr. Teknos, as always, thank you so much for your time and thank you for your clarity.
Thank you, Monica. It's always a pleasure to talk to you.
Thank you so much for listening to Health Yeah. Remember, you can watch the video versions of the episodes on YouTube at Monica Robbins' channel. Subscribe and follow my work and never miss an episode at author.com/Monica Robbins. Find me on X and Instagram at Monica Robbins, and I'm also on Blue Sky Social at monicarobbins.bsky.social. And you can follow me on Facebook at Monica Robbins, WKYC in parentheses. Wishing you the best of health, and stay tuned for your next dose of information.
Monica Robbins is not a medical doctor. All content presented in this program is for informational purposes only. It is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice and should not be relied on as health or personal advice. Always seek the guidance of your personal doctor or qualified healthcare professional with any questions regarding your health or medical condition. Thanks for listening to Health Yeah with Monica Robbins from WKYC Studios. Subscribe now so you never miss an update, and find more on everything you heard right here on WKYC.com, the WKYC app, and WKYC Plus on your smart TV.